Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org.
Hi, I'm Jeff Ayers for Author Magazine, and today I'm here at the Pacific Northwest Writers Conference with John Raab of Suspense Magazine. John, thanks for sitting with me today.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Let's talk about suspense publishing. You do books, you do a magazine, and you also do a radio network, essentially, on Blog Talk Radio. So talk a bit about why you started this publishing empire, essentially.
Well, it's a funny story because my wife, who's now the creative director and she handles a lot of the publishing and everything, there was a long time ago when she read probably 10,000 books, and that's what we kind of figured out in her lifetime. You know, sixth grade, she's going, like I said, school to Clan of the Cave Bears. She's walking around, sixth graders looking at her weird. And we would always walk into bookstores, and a lot of people don't realize that when you walk into bookstores, at the front of the table or everything, you see the same authors because that's pay to play. So the publishers are paying to have those certain authors up front for books. So when you go to the stacks in the back, and let's just, a bigger bookstore, and you're trying to look and you're trying to find new authors, there's no place for them. So she was reading and reading and reading, and she would read like all the J.D. Robbs, and all the Faye Kellermans, and then she was looking for new authors. So I said, there has to be someplace on the internet. Somebody's had to have put all of this together in one form to try to find new authors, debut authors, or mid-list authors that you just don't know about. And so I was looking and there was nothing. I mean, I'm searching 70 different websites to try to find things, and I'm not really finding any information. So I looked at her one night and I said, I'm doing it. And I said, I found the name, I got the domain, and I'm buying it. Her first words out of her mouth were, don't ask me to help you with any of it. Famous last words that she always said. And then it just started expanding. I got Douglas Clegg as the very first interview for the magazine. And then I was going forward. I got Thomas Perry and I got some other authors. And I started off with an author of the month and started trying to pull in debut authors, contacting publishers to get review books. I had no idea it was going to spawn to 8,000 a year, but it did. And then I finally got Stephen King, and then that was the first magazine. So Stephen King was the first magazine that we actually put out, and that she did it. And then from that point forward, we've been just rolling along with it.
So you've got the magazine going, you got the radio shows going, it's all cool, and then you decide that I guess you're not doing enough.
Yeah, let's do books.
Why?
Attending a lot of conferences, Thriller Fest 1, and of course PMWA, this one, we would run into a lot of authors. And the one thing that you find out is when you meet authors, whether it's in the hallway or the bar, and they're always talking, there's one or two things they're always talking about. My publisher stinks, and why can't I sell books, and what's going on, and they're always complaining about something. So we started listening. Open your ears, and we just started listening and said, what are they complaining about? What's going on? So we decided it's the author's work. The authors are the ones who have made the work. They're the ones who put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. So we said, let's publish books, and let's do it in a fresh way. We pay one of the highest, I don't know of anybody who pays a higher royalty rate than we do. And then we decided, let's give the author the control of their work and make them happier. And we said, let's build relationships with them. Let's not do one and done. It's a business development, but it's a family friendship development that we're trying to put together to make the author happy, to make everybody happy. So we must have talked to 50 to 100 people and said, what do you like and what do you not like about your contracts? And so that's when we decided, again, helping people, getting more exposure, let's start publishing books. Now, we had no idea that it would explode into what it has in the last 5 years, but we're grateful that it's done that, because now we see more and more authors saying, oh, thank you so much for doing what you do. And now we work with Amazon a lot, and they license books with us. So we're able to do a little bit different things than the bigger houses do because we're more personal. And I think authors like that. They know they can contact us and we're going to talk back with them, where a publicist at a bigger house might get you 2 weeks and that's it. You don't hear anything back from them.
Since you've interviewed a lot of authors, and so have I, I'm interviewing you right now, for example, what is the biggest thing you see authors I guess, their biggest mistake that they make when they're talking to you, and what can they do to not make that mistake?
Understand who your consumer is. I'm not your consumer as an interviewer. I'm not the one who's going to buy your book. I already got it for free. So I'm not the one you're selling it to. So you need to learn how to sell it to the people that are listening to you. So I always tell them at the very beginning, you write suspense, mystery, thriller, horror, whatever genre you write, you better not be boring. Don't be boring. Because if you're boring, people are going to associate this interview with a boring book. So add some humor, add some funny little stories, talk about your process. Maybe you had something funny that happened during the process, or you, like I said, you know your character, because I'm always going to come back and I'm always going to ask you about your character. I'm always going to ask about your lead character. And one of my favorite questions is, why was John Doe the perfect character to be in this book? Why did you pick them to be in your book? 70% of the time I get crickets. They weren't, and it's almost like, were you not expecting me to ask you that? I mean, really, you're talking about your book. You should know every aspect. So those are the biggest mistakes. It's like they're not prepared to actually talk about their book. And so it always makes me wonder, do you even know what you write? And in getting pitches from authors, because they give us pitches at PitchFest, like we're doing here, there's many times when they'll say, so I wrote this thriller, and then they start going on, and then I start asking them questions, because I'm like, oh, it's a thriller. And you ask questions like it's a thriller. And then they start talking, and I'm like, whoa, you wrote a suspense book then? And they go, no, I wrote a thriller. And I said, no, your genre is suspense, because a thriller is this, and a suspense is this, and a mystery is this. And they go, oh, maybe, yeah, well, okay, well, then it is a suspense book. Those are just little things. So it's little things like that to just know. And the bigger authors, the ones who, when you interview, they know those things. They've been doing it, they understand it, but not all of them. We've had some authors that still don't understand that. And maybe it's nerves and maybe it's not. Maybe they just don't know how to communicate because they're always behind the computer typing and they're not out front talking. But you still have to know. And you still have to be able to relay that to the consumer, because now more than ever, 2,500 books a week get published. There's only so much money and only so many people writing. You better know how to get yourself above everybody else to be seen. And if you're not speaking it right, they're not buying it.
What advice would you give to someone who would like to be published by you, essentially, and they're newbie? You know, someone like writing for the first time.
Write a great book.
That sounds familiar.
And that's true. And I take that advice from you. Write the absolute best book you can. Go through it, edit it, have someone else edit it besides your mother. You know, you need to have someone who's not afraid to make you cry during edits. Someone who's going to be hard and look at it with a very objective eye, because you're not going to catch everything. We talked about this last night. I'm not going to catch everything. You're not going to catch everything that goes on, so you need someone else to be that person to let you know your voice is off, this doesn't fit, this flow doesn't work, this doesn't work. And though you were doing it for a year and you think it's all right and you're reading it and you're like, this is the greatest thing, I wrote the best American novel, you get it back and it looks like your 8th grade English paper because it's red all over. And you just start...
I said my computer was on fire.
Right, and you just start crying and you're like, how could this be? I mean, I wrote it. Then you start looking at the edits and you go, how did I miss that? Oh my God, they're so right. This would be better if I did this instead of this. I think you said, how can somebody have a conversation with a tube down their throat? Yeah. You're right, they can't. So it's just those little things. So you need to make sure that before you send it to a publisher, because here's the thing. Yes, publishers are going to edit your book, but they're not going to edit your first draft. So if you send them your first draft, you're going to get a rejection letter, and they're going to say, thank you, have a nice day. They're not going to sit there and say, oh, you have a great story, we're going to take it on, and then we start editing it. Does not work that way. You need to have your book already professionally edited by somebody. You need to make sure it's gone through some beta readers. You need to make sure, like as if you were going to sell it yourself, then you send it to a publisher, because they're still going to edit it. They're still going to go through it. They're still going to find things, and you're still going to maybe change things, because your editor that you hired might not know certain things that are in the marketplace, things that do sell, things that make better voices. Maybe chapter 3 should be chapter 1. You just never know. You look at it from different perspectives. That's the biggest thing when you're coming to us or any publisher, Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, Kensington. It don't make a difference. You got one shot. Do you want that one shot to be your first draft or the one edited by your mom? Or do you want it to be the one that you spent time in, paid somebody to get it done, get it right, and do it correctly? Because you're not going to open a retail shop with no capital. You're not going to invest in a business, which is what this is. You all want to write. Everybody wants to be the writer and not have to go and have the day job and work 9 to 5. They want to be the writer. They want to be able to create and do that. And that's what they want to do for a living. But it's a business. So you have to invest in yourself. And sometimes that means money, not just time.